The transmission crackled through the void, barely coherent through layers of stellar interference and desperation. Ambassador Kethavar of the Zilani Confederation clutched the communication device with trembling appendages, his usually pristine blue carapace dulled by weeks of malnutrition and fear. "Please," he whispered into the device, his voice carrying across light years to the Sol system. "We have nothing left. The Vorthak hegemony has taken everything. Our colonies burn, our people starve. We beg any who can hear this, send aid. Send anything." The response came faster than expected, crackling with the confidence that had made humanity infamous across the galaxy in just 2 centuries since first contact. "Zilani Confederation, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Fleet. We copy your distress call. Aid is already being prepared. Hold your position." 3 days later, Kethavar stood on the observation deck of the refugee station orbiting his homeworld's dying sun, watching something impossible unfold in space. The first ships to arrive weren't warships. They were massive cargo haulers, their hulls scarred from 1,000 freight runs, accompanied by what appeared to be converted pleasure craft and mining vessels. "What are those?" asked his aide, pointing at the mismatched fleet. Before Kethavar could respond, his communication console lit up. The voice that emerged was warm, tinged with what humans called a southern drawl. "Zilani Station. This is Captain Martinez of the freighter Big Easy. We've got about 4 million tons of food, medical supplies, and prefab housing units. Where do you want them?" The numbers were staggering. In the following hours, more ships arrived. Converted cruise liners filled with volunteers. Engineering vessels carrying entire cities' worth of infrastructure. Hospital ships that had been luxury yachts just weeks before. The humans had mobilized not just their military, but their entire civilian fleet. "How?" Kethavar asked Admiral Chen when she finally arrived aboard her flagship. "How did you marshal such resources so quickly?" Chen smiled, that distinctly human expression that still unnerved most species. "Captain, you sent out a distress call. In human culture, when someone calls for help, you don't send what you can spare, you send what they need." The aid operation was unlike anything the galaxy had witnessed. While other species typically sent surplus supplies or token forces, humanity had apparently decided to relocate half their civilian infrastructure to Zilani space. They didn't just bring food, they brought chefs, farmers, and entire agricultural centers. They didn't just bring medical supplies, they brought research teams who immediately began studying Zilani physiology to optimize treatment. But it was the engineering that truly amazed Kethavar. Within a week, the humans had constructed not merely refugee camps, but cities. Their prefabricated structures weren't simple shelters. They were modular urban centers complete with schools, hospitals, entertainment districts, and manufacturing facilities. "Your people," Kethavar observed to Admiral Chen as they toured the largest settlement, "they build as if they intend to stay forever." "That's because we might," Chen replied matter-of-factly. "The Vorthak are still out there, and we don't leave jobs half-finished." As if summoned by her words, alarms began sounding across the settlement. The Vorthak had found them. The Vorthak hegemony had ruled through terror for 3 millennia. Their ships were biomechanical nightmares, their warriors bred for cruelty, their tactics designed to break spirits before breaking bodies. They had crushed 17 species into submission, and the Zilani were meant to be the 18th. The hegemony fleet emerged from hyperspace expecting to find easy prey, scattered refugees, and perhaps a token defense force. Instead, they found hell wearing human insignia. The converted freighters revealed their true nature as their cargo bays opened, disgorging swarms of fighters and drones. The pleasure craft shed their civilian facades, bristling with weapons that shouldn't have been possible to mount on such small hulls. But it was the arrival of the actual Terran defense fleet that turned the tide from battle to rout. The TDF didn't fight like other species. They didn't maintain formation or follow standard tactics. They fought like a pack of rabid wolves, each ship seeming to anticipate the other's movements in a deadly dance of coordination. Their weapons were crude by galactic standards, kinetic projectiles and directed energy, but deployed with a ferocity that defied comprehension. The Vorthak flagship, Pain's Embrace, found itself surrounded by a dozen human vessels that seemed to ignore basic physics, pulling impossible maneuvers while pouring fire into its organic hull. When it finally exploded, The human ships were already moving to their next targets. In the aftermath, as Vorthak survivors were processed through surprisingly humane prisoner-of-war facilities, Kethavar found Admiral Chen standing in the rubble of what had once been a Zilani city. "Why?" he asked. "Your people barely know us. We have nothing to offer in return. Why risk so much?" Chen was quiet for a long moment, watching human and Zilani engineers working side by side to rebuild the damaged structures. "My grandmother lived through the siege of Stalingrad," she said finally. "She told me once that in the darkest moments when everything seemed lost, strangers would share their last piece of bread with you. She said that's what made us human, not our intelligence or our technology, but our refusal to let others suffer when we could help." She turned to face him, and Kethavar saw something in her eyes that his species had no word for, a fierce, protective love that extended beyond kinship or species. "You called for aid, Captain." "In human culture, that makes you family, and we protect our family." The reconstruction of the Zilani worlds took 3 years. When it was complete, the settlements the humans had built weren't just restored. They were transformed into something greater than they had been before. And when other species faced similar threats, they knew who to call. The galaxy had learned a simple truth. When humans promise aid, they don't just send help. They send hope, built from steel and defended with fury. And they never ever leave family behind.